I'll tell you what, it doesn't get better than being out at opening day, starting the 2024 Major League Baseball season. We are here at Kauffman Stadium, and of course, it's not just any opening day. It is an opening day that is masked in controversy. It's an opening day that has an enormous local election right around the corner. Good morning. It is great to be here on a Thursday on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We have now done this 3 straight years, coming out here for opening day. And every year it's special, every year it's fun, every year it makes you feel like a kid again for opening day. But this year is different. This year is different because now we sit here and we wait for Tuesday, April 2nd. And as I walked into Gate C this morning, we're broadcasting live from the Diamond Club. There were banners, there were yard signs for Vote Yes on April 2nd on the Jackson County sales tax extension. Of course, that 3/8-cent sales tax is going to be split if it passes, courtesy of the Jackson County taxpayer and voter, for another 40 years. You'll have these teams in this county. The Royals will move downtown to their ballpark. The Chiefs will stay out here at the Truman Sports Complex. So this is not just any opening day. This is an opening day that is as intriguing, as fascinating, and also as political as any opening day you will ever be a part of. And it's making it a lot of fun, as we've only been here for about 20 minutes or so. Now, yesterday we wrapped up the show with some breaking news here on KCMO. You heard it here first. You heard it here before the official press releases went out at about 10 o'clock in the morning. You heard here at 9:40 yesterday, as the show was wrapping up, that the Royals plan to adjust their plans downtown. The original plan was to place the team's corporate office and entertainment venues basically right on Oak Street, which would be to the east of where the stadium would be, of course, the old Kansas City Star building. That would be the stadium. East of there, crossing over to Oak Street, would be the entertainment. That would also be the corporate offices, because this is not just a baseball stadium, of course. As we've talked about for months, this is also a venue to make money on things like rentals, whether it's corporate offices, entertainment venues, restaurants, bars, things of that nature. Not as big as what was originally proposed, but still. The plan is to have revenue streams beyond baseball games. And that was going to be basically right on Oak Street. So yesterday, the Royals said those plans are going to change. They are not going to close off Oak Street. They intend to continue with that district development, but they're going to alter the plans to keep Oak Street open. What exactly that looks like, what exactly that means, that remains to be seen. The Royals made this announcement, but you heard it here first on KCMO yesterday. We had the breaking news before anybody else at 9:40 in the morning, and they're now reworking this proposed Crossroads Ballpark district to keep Oak open after pressure from Mayor Lucas and other city officials, and also the Crossroads community. So we heard from many of you as the show was wrapping up yesterday, and for many of you, you didn't care. You didn't give a damn. You don't care. You're a vote no. This is not going to change things for you. And that's fine. It's not intended necessarily to change things for you. But you do have to say this much. For those of you, and I'll include myself in this category at times, who feel like the team did not necessarily go about this the best way possible. They didn't go about this laying the foundation, talking to groups, and then getting the feedback, and then submitting a plan. You have to at least give them credit in saying they're listening. You can't scream and shout and say, well, the team doesn't listen, the team doesn't care, and then when they tweak their plans, sit here and say, well, that doesn't matter. You can't have it both ways. It has to be one way or the other. If you're going to rag on them and say, hey, they have not gone about this the right way, they have not listened to certain groups, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But now they are. Now, is it clunky sitting here, 5 days out, 4 days out from Election Day? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of weird because, of course, a lot of people have voted. A lot of you have early voted. Another reason to not have 2 weeks of early voting, but I'll save that conversation for another day. But you have to give them enough to at least say, hey, they heard from people. They realized this was not going to be a popular plan. They want to keep open Oak Street as a major thoroughfare coming in and out of that part of town. And they're going to keep going on with what they've got doing right now. And that's it. So I look at this and I say to myself, it's a step in the right direction. Should it get you to a yes vote? That's up to you. I'm not telling you how to vote in this thing. You think I'm doing that? That'd be freaking nuts. There's no way I'm going down that road. But what I will do is take you blow by blow, take you step by step, and say, hey, when one side does something well, I'll give them credit. When the other side does something well, I'll give them credit. And that's exactly how I'm looking at this situation as we sit here on opening day and get set for what is going to be a fascinating day and a fascinating show, because the owner of the Royals, John Sherman, is going to join us at 9:05 this morning. I know it's a ways away if you're in the 6 a.m. hour right now, but I had to tee it up there for you because you're not going to want to miss that conversation. First time he'll have been on this show in a year. It was a year ago today we had him on. And, I thought that was going to be a controversial conversation. I could never have predicted what these last 12 months would look like in this town. And the way that this thing has unfolded, the way that it's played out, and the way that you have seen John Sherman, who 4.5 years ago bought this team, pre-COVID, pre all the chaos of 2020, and he was a hero. I heard stories, and John Sherman wouldn't talk about this publicly, that's not who he is, but I have heard stories that when he bought the team in 2019, he would walk into restaurants and there would be standing ovations. Now we sit here, and he is the most controversial man today in Kansas City. And I don't think that's inherently who he is. I don't think that's what he ever intended to be. But that's what this whole thing has turned into. John Sherman, the owner of the Royals, becoming, right now, the most controversial man in Kansas City. He's taken that away from probably Quentin Lucas, and Quentin Lucas could probably use a break from, holding that position as the most controversial man in Kansas City. The difference is Quentin Lucas sometimes brings it on himself. I don't think John Sherman intended to bring this on himself. I think it just organically unfolded. But it goes to show you that as we get set for Tuesday, we get set for April 2nd, and this vote that is coming up, that is right around the corner, it is one of those things that has this entire town, and the entire region for that matter, on pins and needles. Not because I buy into the fears that the teams are leaving the region if this thing goes down on Tuesday. But they're on pins and needles because we really don't know what the future holds if there's a no vote. Not that they're leaving for Nashville, but that maybe Clay County is back in the conversation. I was talking to somebody last night, and they said to me, do you think they should have picked Clay County instead? I said, I don't know. I think they had the reasons for not going up north. They want to make this downtown situation work. And they thought extending the tax already on the books would be easier. What they didn't account for is the crazy progressive politics of Kansas City, Missouri, combined with a pissed-off Jackson County tax base that feels like it's getting screwed and squeezed at every turn. And that's because they are. And now you have these two factions who are very different in terms of their backgrounds, where they come from politically, what their beliefs are, potentially coming together to vote no. Yep. And that's what makes this as interesting as anything else. John Anthony, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Politics makes strange bedfellows. Wasn't that a phrase we used to hear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know my mailman's going to be excited for this election because he brought me 2 more brochures that I'll share with you tomorrow when we get in studio.
Oh, you got 2 more in the mailbox
Another vote,
there.
yes, but completely different. Probably from the same outfit, all different graphics, though. Very colorful. That one addressed to the missus.
Well, here's the thing, though. You may say the postman's going to be happy. I'm thinking the Chiefs and the Royals are keeping the post office in business in this town.
They are. They are indeed.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're looking forward to what's going to be a great day out here at the ballpark, although I did blow a tire coming in, which I'm not happy about. So it doesn't end. Hopefully not a sign of things to come today. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I hope that's not a sign of what this show is going to sound like and look like here on the radio. But either way, blew the tire, pulling into the stadium. I could hear it, and I heard something pop in the back right. And I'm like, gosh, dang it, Kansas City, Missouri Road, you're killing me already. Been here for 5 minutes. Oh, my gosh. But I'll save that rant for later this morning when I need it. Anyway, we are going to be having a great lineup of guests. We mentioned owner John Sherman at 9:05 this morning. Mayor Lucas in his usual 7:35 slot. So we've got all that coming up here on KCMO Talk Radio. Next, I don't know, this should not get buried. A story about Gene Peters Baker failing to prosecute in this town. We'll do it all and also hear from you. If there are questions you're going to have this morning for the mayor, for the owner, anybody involved, your time to get in is now at 913-408-7957. It's great to be here as we start off a Thursday opening day morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Well, we got a tax cut potentially coming here in Kansas. How about that? It is great to be here. Happy Thursday. It's opening day. We are live at Kauffman Stadium on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are going to have a loaded lineup of guests this morning. Mayor Lucas at 7:30, but also owner John Sherman at 9:05. So set the alarm for that. Stream us if you have to on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So yesterday, little bipartisan action in Topeka. How about that? Democrats and Republicans coming together to unanimously approve a bipartisan bill slicing hundreds of millions. Now, let me actually set this up and tell you where this is coming from. This is coming from the Kansas Reflector, which a bunch of the losers and cast-offs from the Kansas City Star went to, like, the Kansas Reflector. So just understand the prism that they're coming through this on when they open up their article writing, Kansas Democrats and Republicans joined forces Wednesday to unanimously approve a bipartisan bill slicing hundreds of millions annually in state income, sales, and property taxes, with an eye towards dodging a veto by Governor Laura Kelly. Well, let's just be clear on what's going on here. As a Kansan, you are keeping more of the money you make. Of course, they frame it like slicing hundreds of millions of dollars in state income and revenue and things like that. It's like, no. People are keeping their money. That's how it's supposed to be. Not that we shouldn't have a government that obviously funds the basic essentials and has a safety net and all that stuff. But that's very different from the way they frame it in the Kansas Reflector. But that should not be all that surprising. Now, during the debate on the package Tuesday night, lawmakers affirmed reductions in income tax rates paid by earners in 3 brackets to now what is going to be called a 2-tier system, more or less. Kansans earning less than $7,000 would no longer pay state income tax, while people making $7,000 to $30,000 would see their rates fall from 5.25 to 5.2%. And those taking in more than $30,000 would have their rate cut from 5.7 to 5.65. So it's not a massive cut. But also, if you're married, you won't get taxed on your first $14,000 in income. So right away, there are some tax benefits there for married couples. Or if you're single, you won't get taxed on your first $7,000 in income under this plan. And right now, you're taxed from $1 in Kansas at, I believe it's like 3.1%, give or take. So what this does is it creates a 2-tier tax system, and it has the numbers at 5.2 down from 5.25, and then 5.65 down from 5.7. So it's minor, it's small. The question is, can this thing actually get through and come into law? It would also eliminate the Social Security state tax, which should have been done years ago. There's only a handful of states in the country that are still taxing Social Security, and Kansas is dumb enough to be one of them. Kansas has a problem that doesn't get enough attention, and it's been happening the last couple of years. There are more people leaving the state than there are coming in. You don't feel that way being in Johnson County. I don't feel that way being in Johnson County. Every developer schmuck wants to build a new apartment building in every corner. But the state as a whole, that's happening. So you've got to look at it and say, what do we do to prevent people from leaving this state? Well, the first thing you should do is trying to prevent seniors from bailing on your state. And that's in part what's happening. They get on Social Security. if they already have a reason to leave, let's say their families moved out of the area, they want some warmer weather, they are not incentivized to stay when you're taxing their Social Security at the state level, which is just a crime. I mean, you know how I feel about Social Security. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's a total scam. The numbers back up it's a scam. But if you're going to have it, these are people who have paid this tax for their entire working lives. And now you're taxing them on something you're supposed to be giving them in their retirement. It's ridiculous. So that would be eliminated under this plan in 2024 for the 2024 tax year rather than phased out over 4 years per the original House bill. So there's a lot at play here. It would lower the state's property taxes for K through 12 public education from 20 mills to 18 mills. In addition, the residential exemption on the piece of state property tax would be raised from $40,000 to $100,000. So basically, you would not have property taxes for K through 12 on your first $100,000 of property ownership. So that would be a bit of a tax cut as well. So this is a step in the right direction. The bill endorsed by the House, 123 to nothing across the board, now goes to the Kansas Senate, where its fate is uncertain. We'll see what ends up happening here going forward. It's got to get through the Senate, and then, of course, Governor Kelly can sign it, or they can override a veto. Now, here's the question. How does Governor Kelly tell Democrats in the House and the Senate to handle this? Does she try to get this thing killed before it gets to her desk, or does she sign it in a sign of bipartisan support? I don't know how she could possibly turn this thing down. For a governor who has won 2 elections, amazingly, on this idea of working across the aisle and not being extreme and, working with Republicans, how you could possibly veto a bill that passes the House 123 to nothing and then theoretically would also get through the Senate, that would be nuts. I mean, there would be no way to defend Laura Kelly being a supposed bipartisan governor if she goes ahead and vetoes a bill that got through the House 123 zip. It just wouldn't make any sense for what she has built her brand on, and that is bipartisanship and working across the aisle and working together and doing all that stuff. So we don't know what's going to happen yet in the Senate, but the fact that this thing got through the way it did is a very good sign. And the reason she wouldn't sign it, by the way, is because she does not want to cut the state income tax rate out of principle, not out of revenue concerns. This is not, Sam Brownback 2.0 or anything like that. We're talking about a 0.05% cut in the income tax rate that would save every Kansan money. This is not Sam Brownback. Going from 5.7 to 5.65 on your income taxes is not going to bankrupt the state. And if it is going to bankrupt the state, then you got a spending problem, not a revenue problem. So I'm hopeful that this thing does end up getting done. I think it should get across the finish line because I think there's a lot of things in here that everybody wanted. It lowers income tax rates, property taxes, and also sales taxes. An amendment to the House bill would terminate the state's 2% sales tax on food on July 1st instead of on January 1. So that would be expedited. So all in all, there's a lot here to like in this bill. I do hope it ends up getting done, and we'll see how it plays out. I'm Pete Mundo, KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are live at Kauffman Stadium. Well, it's been all uphill since I pulled into Kauffman Stadium this morning and blew out my back right tire. Show's going great. The guests have been outstanding, and they're only going to get better. We've got the owner of the Royals, John Sherman, here at 9:05 this morning and working on getting that tire fixed, too. I think they're trying to butter me up here a little bit, guys, Big vote coming up on Tuesday. They're trying to butter me up a little bit here. But, no, they've been very good trying to help me out. So they're going to check on that because I don't want people coming to the game today coming off of I-70, which is where I came off through Gate 2 and blowing out their tire. So they're coming in. They're checking on that. They're doing a great job. And if you're coming out today to the ballpark, you're going to have an outstanding time. I mean, listen, this has been part of the conversation this entire news cycle. You come out here, and it is an awesome ballpark. It is a great place to watch a game. You just can't deny that. I mean, you cannot come to this stadium and say that you're not going to have a great experience, an awesome time, and you're going to enjoy yourself. You are. Now, we get the economics of baseball are different, and they're changing. Especially in a smaller market, you have to find other ways to make money. I get it. We've talked about that ad nauseum on this show. But, man, to think that you can't come out to this ballpark and this stadium and just feel all Americana, baseball to its core, there's something wrong with you if you don't feel that when you come out here to Kauffman Stadium. It is that kind of ballpark. And I've probably been to, it's on my bucket list when I'm old. I'm going to drag my wife around the country and go to 30 Major League Baseball stadiums. I mean, she's going to hate it. But I would like to do that one day, when I'm old and retired and this show is long gone. But this is right up there. In the probably 6 or 7 baseball stadiums I've been to, it is absolutely right up there. So it's great to be here at the K on opening day. John Sherman at 9:05, Mayor Lucas in 15 minutes. So I heard this morning on our Fox News Rundown show at 5 a.m., and I was stunned it was this high. But right now, 9 out of 10 police departments in this country are short-staffed. 9 out of 10. If you were to ask me what that number was, I would have guessed 75%. I would have said 3 out of 4. And I might have been overshooting it. I hear this morning it's 9 out of 10, and then I started looking it up, and I confirmed it's 9 out of 10. And, of course, they're talking about the why behind that. Well, we all know the why. The why is you've spent 4 years now in this country demeaning police officers. You've spent 4 years in this country, and I say you, I refer to society, social media, culture at large. We know who all the people are to blame for this, but it's been 4 solid years of ragging on police, ragging on cops, ragging on the industry at large, law enforcement, and politicians going along with the nonsense. And now you have 9 out of 10 departments in a position where they're short-staffed. What does that mean, by the way? That means worse service, lesser services. That means also the people who do get hired may not be the best of the brightest. All these things are part of the conversation. And what does it mean? It means for those who need police the most, and let's be honest, those who are in poorer communities are more likely to need the police in a moment's notice than others. They're the ones who get impacted. That's the irony and the stupidity of the anti-police movement. It hurts the people who need the police the most. It hurts those who are far more likely to pick up their phone today and call 911. And to think that the people they claim they're trying to help, the people that they insist they want to take care of, are the ones who get hurt by their moronic policies should not be lost on anybody. But now you sit here with 9 of 10 law enforcement departments in this country being short-staffed. And by the way, on top of that, you have situations like here in Kansas City, where a guy like Eric DeValcanair is doing his job, is sitting in prison for 162 days. Meantime, we told you the story yesterday where a guy who admitted to shooting his girlfriend in a parking lot at a gas station, who's on video doing it, spent 8 months and a week in prison, 262 days. He spent 100 days more in prison than Eric DeValcanair, who is still in prison today as a former KCPD detective. Think about that. That's happening right here in Jackson County. Who would get into law enforcement in this insane world? You cannot recruit at the level that they're losing people, and now you're seeing it pay off in a terrible way for society at large. And on top of that, I mean, if you haven't seen this story out of New York City, we haven't really talked about it, but they lost one of their own police officers here this week. Jonathan Diller, young guy, leaves behind a young wife and looks like a 1.5, 2-year-old son. He lost his life in a traffic stop this week. And I saw this headline in the New York Post. Basically, the union guys are saying don't show up to the anti-cop politicians. And anyone who has been anti-cop and has advocated against the police, the unions are saying don't show up. God forbid this community deals with something like that again, and we've dealt with it far too often here over the last few years. We just dealt with it in Independence with Officer Allen. I hope that whether it's the police departments themselves, but more so the unions, the police departments and the leaders have to play somewhat nice with the politicians, but the unions don't have to. The leadership in these unions, if God forbid we have to deal with this again, at some point in this town or some point in this region, should tell anybody who's got a history of promoting defund the police, anti-cop rhetoric, should tell them to not show up and to pound sand. That's what they should do. Because this is resulting in law enforcement officers losing their lives, and it's happening far too frequently. And it's not just here in our region, it's all over the country. And this week, the headline story is with KCPD. But, you have lost now far too many officers. We've talked through the numbers before. And by the way, cops are getting killed at a higher rate than unarmed American citizens are. And if you were to ask any of these social media clowns about how many people have died in the line of duty versus how many unarmed citizens have been killed in this country, they would tell you, the cops are killing people every day. They're just, out there willy-nilly shooting people every day. It's not true. It's been a lie since 2020. But they used that lie, and then the media promoted that lie to pursue an agenda. And they effectively pursued an agenda in 2020. And any politician who's sitting here today and telling you, no, I'm not, for defunding the police. I want the police to get raises. I want to see the cops do well. You know what? The damage has been done. And I believe it's going to set back policing, and it will set policing back in this country at least a generation. You talk to a lot of cops right now, ask them, do they want their kids to get into this line of work? A lot of them are going to say no. And this line of work has oftentimes been passed down through families from generation to generation. And if you lose that pipeline, you'll defund the police without promoting defund the police. There won't be anyone who wants to be a cop. 7:51. The sun is up here at the K, and it is a beautiful morning and will be a beautiful day for baseball. And it is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. It's our third straight year coming out here for opening day, but it's not just obviously about the baseball. It's fun to be out here and talk about everything going on with the teams and, how this season can be different and start to turn things around. And by the way, GM J.J. Piccolo will be here at 9:30. But owner John Sherman at 9:05 is obviously the star of the morning and is right now the most controversial man in Kansas City. Not that he wants that. I don't think he ever signed up or thought he signed up for that. But that's just the reality of where this city and where this town is today. There's no disputing that. It's a reality that, everybody involved has to accept. And he's hoping things obviously break his way coming up on Tuesday with this vote yes or vote no vote. That's happening right now. Early voting's been underway for over a week. So I had to get in my anti-early voting line to Mayor Lucas, which I don't know if he appreciated that or not, but we are in a bizarre world where people are voting up to 45 days before elections. I mean, it's nuts. I get it. If you're in the military, disabled, we got to figure out ways to get you to the polls. And some early voting, I'm not opposed to. If we had if early voting started the Thursday before an election, I'd be fine with it. You get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then even have Monday. Right now in early voting, you can't vote in most places the day before Election Day. Usually it's you can vote up until Friday or Saturday the day before Election Day, but Monday is no-go. And then if you don't vote by Friday or Saturday, you got to go to the polls on Tuesday on Election Day. So if you did Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, or even took off Monday because you got to prep for Tuesday, I'm okay with that. But this let's early vote for weeks ahead of time is insane in today's world because the news cycle moves too fast. There's too many things that are happening late in whether it's presidential elections or, in this case, what we've got right now, yesterday's news, where the Royals and the city announced that they are not going to cross over Oak Street. And they're going to leave Oak Street open as a thoroughfare. You just heard from Mayor Lucas. I asked him 3 times, directly and then also indirectly, whether or not he wants to and will vote yes now that this Oak Street drama is at least fixed? And he wouldn't answer. As some of you are noting on the text line, this was pretty funny. Mayor Lucas doing his best Bill Clinton impression this morning. And that was in terms of the way that he was not answering directly. Not in terms of other things. All right, that's what the reference was on the text line. And I get that, by the way. Like, I understand that. He doesn't want to be on the wrong side. In fact, I think it would be in the best interest of him to stay out of it. If he wants to do what's in his own best interest, why bother endorsing either side of this? There's nothing that can really come out good for him. I know you'll say, well, he's an incumbent, so it really doesn't matter anyway, right? He's not getting reelected as mayor. It's meaningless for him. That's true. That's absolutely true. But he's got aspirations beyond being the mayor in Kansas City. You know that, and I know that. That's why he's trying to play his cards right here. And he's trying to think about what's in my best interest politically. Now, he said yesterday was a step in the right direction. Okay, and I agree with him on that, by the way. You can't sit here and be critical of ownership and say, well, they haven't done enough in listening to the people. And then when they make some 11th hour changes, which come from listening to the people, you say, that's ridiculous, that's BS. You can't have it both ways. You got to give credit if they do make 11th hour changes, if you've been critical of them for not listening, in your opinion, thus far. So they've made those changes. Oak Street will, they say, remain an open thoroughfare, and they'll adjust the plans as they see fit. That's all well and good. But still, notice you're not hearing a lot from City Hall. Very few of the city council members have endorsed this thing either way. We've only got Jonathan Duncan, who's one of the KC Tenants' big stars, who has come out officially and said he's a no. And I'm not surprised by that because Jonathan Duncan is in City Hall. He's 6th in district. He beat Dan Tarwater, which he should have never won that race. That's a story for another day, but he should have never beat Dan Tarwater. But he did, and he's a diehard KC Tenants guy. So obviously he's going to be someone who is going to say, I'm a no vote. But nobody else. I mean, even like, some of the other KC Tenants big folks, like Eric Bike Boy Bunch, even Bike Boy Bunch hasn't come out either way on this thing. And that's a surprise because the Tenants love him. The Tenants love Andrea Boo as well. And they're just sitting on their hands. They're staying quiet. Why? They don't see a benefit to get involved. And I can't really blame them for feeling that way right now. What's the benefit? I mean, let's be honest. Who is going to be on the fence and say, I'm waiting for my councilman or my councilwoman to endorse? If you're waiting, especially on some of these goobers on this city council, you're waiting on these people to make a decision? I mean, I don't know if I trust you as far as I could throw you. You do not want to be waiting on these people to find out how to vote. You got to be making your own decision on this. Now, I would say that most of the time, but especially in this scenario. I mean, if you are waiting on Andrea Boo to figure out how you're going to vote on something, I mean, I wonder if you know how to tie your shoes. That would be completely embarrassing if you're waiting on some of these people. So they realize there is no benefit to go out there and endorse this thing either way. So they're staying out of it, and it probably makes the most amount of sense for everybody involved. Yep, Dan Bongino, he's going to have a great show coming up at noon today. Ray Stevens will take over at 10 o'clock. We are here till 10 as we are live at Kauffman Stadium. And according to engineer extraordinaire Dennis Eversole, John Sherman has just arrived and walked into the Diamond Club where we are broadcasting from. So we've got him coming up at 9:05 here on KCMO Talk Radio. Got to give the Royals a little bit of a shout-out here, too. I blew out a tire coming into the stadium this morning, and they're trying to help me out. So it's going to be a really good day, and appreciate them doing that here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. I was turning right. I usually I come the back way if I'm coming for a game, whether it's Royals or Chiefs. But, it's 4:35 in the morning, so I'm like, I'll do 435 north, get on 70, get off there, get into Gate 2, and go on my merry way. And, when you're getting off of 70 east, you're on there really, half a mile, quarter mile, if that. You get off for the stadiums, you get to that stoplight there, and you make a right. And you got Gate 1 and then you've got gate 2. I go into gate 2 because I'm parking where they told me to park between the stadiums down here. And right as I'm coming off towards gate 2, there's a massive pop in the back right of the car. So I get out of the car right, as I'm getting into gate 2, and I look at the back right tire where I hear the noise, and I don't see anything. And my on air, or the little thing that shows up on your console when your tires are low, didn't show up. But it's making this clicking noise, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I'm able to get the car into the parking lot where I need to be, and I park. And still, there's nothing on my dash that says the tire's low. So then I go back to the right side of the tire, and I take out my phone, I turn on the flashlight, and there's like this, it's not a nail. It's like one of those wrenches that you would use on like IKEA furniture, but clearly it's not that because there's something sharp, and it's still in the tire. So I find it, I pull it, and then I start hearing a psss, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm screwed. So it's still sitting there in the tire, and the Royals have been willing to help me out. And they also asked me where it happened because I don't want any fans coming out here today. Hey, it's opening day, rah, rah, Royals. Take the family out to the game and then blow out a tire coming into gate 2. So they are out there looking at that right now. So really, I'm just doing a service here for the other fans. I'm blowing out tires at 4 a.m., testing out the roads, making sure everybody else gets here safe and in one piece. But, yeah, I'm going to have to deal with that. And Dennis here, our engineer extraordinaire, is going to be taking care of us today. He's going to help me fix that tire if I need to, if AAA doesn't show up. But
such a nice man.
That's right. But no, the team has been very good about it, and it's not their fault. It was, coming into gate 2. So I'm going to blame Jackson County. I'm going to blame Kansas City, Missouri. I'm going to blame MoDOT, but I'm not going to blame the team for that one. I'll just blame everybody else. But that's what you get, right? Potholes and big old nails in your tires. Spend, 10 minutes into the county line, and here I am blowing out tires left and right. That's just how it goes. 913-408-7957 as we roll through the morning on KCMO. Of course, we know what's coming up on Tuesday. We'll do more of that with Sarah Torville, bottom of the hour. I do want to address this, though, and Fox 4 has been very good on these stories the last couple of days. I got to give them all the credit in the world because yesterday they had 2 days ago. Let's go to 2 days ago. They had this story about how the prosecutor's office in Jackson County cut a deal with a guy who was accused and admitted to shooting his ex-girlfriend. And the prosecutor's office in Jackson County gave him 251 days behind bars, 8 months and 1 week, and then he was released on probation. They offered a plea deal of 1 count of involuntary manslaughter, despite the fact that he admitted to shooting his girlfriend, and he's on video shooting his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and they gave this scumbag 251 days behind bars. That's it. That's all he got. All right? Malik Weaver was his name. And then today, I don't know what's going on at Fox 4, but they're doing some great capital J journalism. I thought they were getting a little woke on me here the last few weeks, but that is not the case at all. Then yesterday, they dropped this story about another soft on crime issue that has resulted potentially in the situation at Union Station ending up even worse than it already was. One of the guys who was arrested and is facing 4 felony charges, his name is Terry Young. He's 20 years old. He's being held on $1 million bond right now. Back in 2021, he was not charged by the prosecutor's office in relation to the death of a teenager. He was involved in a shooting where a teenager was shot in his vehicle. And Terry Young, everybody says that Terry Young was a guy who was involved. Terry Young was in possession. Someone was in possession of the gun when it went off, and it was Terry Young. And now they're sitting there and they're saying, well, why didn't you take care of this guy 2.5 years ago? What's that all about? There was also video evidence that Terry Young was waving the gun around back in 2021. The lead detective presented the case to the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, and guess what? Nothing really came of it. They presented the case to the prosecutor's office in regards to charges against Young for first-degree involuntary manslaughter, and Nothing came of it. The guy didn't get anything. They slapped him on the wrist effectively. And you sit here and you wonder, if you're a Jackson County or a Kansas City resident, why does this keep happening? Why are we facing 180-plus murders? Why are we setting these records? And then you got to look at stories like this and say, well, when you have people who are doing things like this, shooting others, waving guns around, breaking the law, and the people in charge aren't prosecuting them, that's how this ends up getting even worse. There's a snowball effect here. You have to address it. There are bad people who are doing bad things every single day in every community. We know that. I'm not sharing anything with you that you don't know, that is not clear as day to people who follow the news. Like, we all get that. There are bad actors. You have to do something about them before you get to the point where they're involved in shootings at the Super Bowl parade rally where you've got 1 million innocent people standing around. You just can't have that. And that's exactly what we've got, unfortunately, happening here. And I got to give Fox 4 a ton of credit for covering these two stories on back-to-back days. Because this is the kind of stuff that up until a few weeks ago, we were the only ones talking about. Like, we would highlight these stories, we'd talk about them, we'd say, hey, there's something wrong there with the judges, there's something wrong in the prosecutor's office, and it'd be nice if other media covered it. Fox 4 has led on these stories the last couple of days, and it's about time they did this. If you had a decent newspaper in this town, they would also be doing it. Instead, they're too busy writing opinion pieces about everything under the sun. And I'm not against opinion pieces. That's what I do 4 hours every day, and you do when you call the show. We have opinions. However, if you're going to be a true news outlet, you can't protect certain people just for the sake of it. And we know the Star has a very incestual relationship with the prosecutor's office because the guy who's the media director in the prosecutor's office used to work for the Kansas City Star. His name is Mike Manser. So you have this very weird relationship where certain people and certain offices get protected by the supposed newspaper of record in this community. And it's wildly problematic. So outside of us, you have to have outlets like Fox 4 calling it like it is. You have to have other media outlets doing great journalism and actually having reporters who know what stories to follow, how to follow up, how to ask the right questions, how to find these cases and look into the background to these individuals. We're just one show here. We try to do as much of it as we can, but in the end, we're just one show. And we're looking forward to, of course, pursuing and pushing that as much as we can. And we're glad that there are people joining us, like Fox 4, on stories like this. 913-408-7957. It's been a busy morning out at Kauffman Stadium, and we have some opportunities for you to get in here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Right now is one of them. We just wrapped up with Sarah Torville, the Executive Vice President of the Kansas City Royals. We will have John Sherman, the owner of the team, coming up here at 9:05. Don't miss that. Stream it if you have to, if you're at the office by then, at KCMOTalkRadio.com or on the KCMO Talk Radio app. 913-408-7957. Let's go to the phones. Steve is on KCMO. What's up, Steve? Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you guys. How are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. What's happening, big guy?
All right, look, I used to be a baseball fan when I was a kid. When Bo Jackson played, he almost made it a contact sport. That's when baseball was fun. It was exciting. Those days are gone. And I know there's a lot of baseball fans out there, and I'm not going to take anything away from those folks. Even I still like going to Kauffman with my kids. But we have to start to realize that the NFL is now America's pastime. There's plenty of numbers that support that. This stadium idea of moving it away from where it's at, and I guess I'm just going to call it what it is. It's a party district that they want to build. It brings youth. It's a bunch of alcohol. The city already has problems with violence and crime and what have you. Alcohol and bars add to that. Now you look at Power and Light. I think I read somewhere that it's still $20 million a year taxpayer funded just to survive.
Correct. Yeah, Power and Light loses money every year. Taxpayers fund that thing to the tune of, you're right, $20 million.
Yes, and the Crossroads District is really no different. I don't know that it still continues to take tax dollars to support it, but all we're going to allow the Royals to do is build a new fancy stadium and build basically another Power and Light that the taxpayers will continue to have to pay for. So I understand her argument, but I think if we're going to be honest about all this, just leave it downtown. And
you mean leave it where it is, or leave it downtown?
Well, leave it where it is. I mean, I'm on the Kansas side. I firmly believe that these stadiums are way too far north anyway. But the room is out there for them. It makes sense for them to be out there. But, at the end of the day, her argument of, public transportation, this and that, we're going to build new housing, they're not. They're going to build apartments like, Power and Light 1, Power and Light 2, $2,200 a month luxury apartments. The average person won't live down there anyway. So they don't have an argument, in my opinion.
Steve, thank you very much. Listen, there's no doubt it will be nice apartments, although they're also going to have to give away a bunch to, they're going to have squatters and homeless people down there to make the KC tenants happy. So you're going to have this weird dichotomy of, yes, they will not be slum apartments. I agree with that. They will generate revenue for the team. In part, they think that's their business model that they need to be successful. I mean, that's what this is about, and that's part of what we're going to talk to John Sherman about. There is an insistence that the business model in baseball is as such where you have to find ways to make money beyond tickets, ballpark, TV deals, because, one, there's no salary cap in baseball, and two, the local TV deals are where these teams make a lot of money. The Yankees have a TV deal that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but are probably 10x what the Royals TV deal is. So right away, it's like, well, who's going to be able to spend more money on players when there's no salary cap? Now you know the answer, and now you know who it is. So that's where it's like, all right, if they claim this is the model that requires them to make money, to then invest that money into the team, so be it. I'd make that pitch. But this is where this entire conversation has gotten so negative in nature, where it's now about, hey, if you don't vote yes, we got to explore our options. Do I think the teams wanted to use that talking point ahead of this vote? No. I think they feel they have to because, one, it's close, and two, fear works in politics, like it or not. Everyone does it. Donald Trump uses fear. Joe Biden uses fear. Down to the local level, politicians in every campaign use fear to their advantage. But that's why I made sure to ask Sarah about whether or not those threats, for lack of a better word, were really about, looking elsewhere regionally or truly looking elsewhere. And I think the answer is more of a regional look. That's my interpretation of it if things do go down on Tuesday. Just heard from Royals owner John Sherman here on KCMO Talk Radio, 913-408-7957. We got GM J.J. Piccolo coming up at the bottom of the hour. You heard his pitch. Listen, I said it on the show. I've said this for months. I'm not saying this just because I'm here and they could throw me out in 5 minutes if they want, and then I'm screwed for the final half hour of the show and John and Mark have to do it, which they could do. I've said this for months, though, that I believe that John Sherman is the best face for selling the yes vote, more so than some of the people that have been either put in charge of advocating for the yes vote or have just on their own gone about advocating for the yes vote. His approach is one that you would want to have in somebody promoting the yes vote. A lifelong Kansas Cityan, wants the team to be here. I asked him, hey, are you seriously going to start looking at other options? And he's like, I've never said that. That's being said more by people involved in the political realm. And it's just a less offensive approach for people who don't like that. 913-408-7957 is how you join us here on KCMO. Mike is next up. Mike, good morning. Go ahead.
Hey, Pete. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Mike, what's happening, big guy?
Okay. I live in Clay County, as you know, that I don't have a vote, but I've been kind of undecided. Now you can make an argument for both sides. I watched the debate last week on Channel 19. I loved it. Nick Haynes does a good job. But you had everybody on the show this morning. I had a lot of questions answered about concessions, cheap hot dogs, cheap drinks. I love Coca-Cola, and they changed Coke. The parking thing, you get the 4 hot dogs and the 4 drinks on Sunday for one ticket with the parking and the drinks and included. So my only concern is I could afford to go, and I got grandkids, but, can you really afford to go? And, you did all the concessions and the different things like that. So I'm still kind of undecided which way, but, I don't know. It's a good deal. And Mr. Sherman is a good man. I believe his intentions are well. He wants to keep the team in town, and so I'm sure he's going to try everything he can to do that. So, it's going to be close. So
It is going to be, thank you, Mike. It is going to be a coin flip. There's no doubt about it. I think that has caught many on the yes side off guard. I think if you go back to 8 weeks ago, right, 7 weeks ago, the Chiefs are getting set to play in a Super Bowl. The Royals are on the verge of signing Bobby Witt to a $300 million deal. Played great baseball at the end of the season. Optimism around the baseball season this year. Chiefs win a Super Bowl. Parade shooting aside, all the momentum was in favor of these teams and a yes vote. Then the Crossroads location happens, and things kind of exploded. Partially because of the Crossroads location and the Crossroads folks making a lot of noise. But not only that, you already had this bubbling up at the grassroots level of people pushing no and wanting to vote no and supporting no. And yes, it were some wildly progressive groups like the KC Tenant Commies. There's no doubt about it. They've been doing this for a while. But it wasn't, and it isn't exclusively them. As I talked to John Sherman about, there are other pockets as well of no voters. I think the biggest thing, if the no vote wins on Tuesday, the most overlooked part of why the no vote will win is because of things that the teams can't control. And that is inflation in a populist environment where people feel like their dollar's not going as far. And not that a 0.3 cent sales tax is going to make or break the bank. We're talking, depending on who you ask, $50 to $100 a year, right? But it's more about the fact that people are fed up. And it's not necessarily with John Sherman. It's not even necessarily with the Royals. It's that when people go to the polls and they vote based off of something that is emotional, like this story and this issue is, they want to stick it to the man. Think about it in the national political sense. Voting for Donald Trump, it's not even that some of the people who love Donald Trump could even list all his policies. They love Donald Trump because they want him and they view him as their vessel to stick it to the man, to stick it to the establishment in D.C. And for a lot of people next week, voting no is not going to really be about the vision that John Sherman is talking about. It's going to be about people being fed up over the last 3 years, and they can't kick Joe Biden out of office till, next fall. They can't vote Frank White out of office until 2026. But this is a way for them to send a message to really whoever they want to send a message to, whether it's locally or nationally. And they don't want to get squeezed anymore, even though we're talking about a very small amount of money. It's the emotion behind it that is getting lost by, I think, the vote yes folks in terms of what's coming out about the vote no folks. It's not about the progressive wackos downtown. They're nuts. They'll always be nuts. It's that faction that is getting overlooked.